Tennyson wrote, "Yet all experience is an arch wherethrough gleams that untravelled world, whose margins fades forever and forever when I move." It is indeed an honor to welcome you all to this special lecture titled 19th Century England, A Historical Perspective. On behalf of the Department of English, I welcome Dr. Sanober Haider, our speaker for the day. We are delighted to have you here, ma'am. I also extend my welcome to Professor Nishi Pandey, Manager, Awadh Girls Degree College, Dr. U. Chaturvedi, Principal, Awadh Girls Degree College, and all the eminent faculty members and students from various colleges and universities. Welcome. Now I request Dr. Ranjana Krishna to steer the program forward.
Hello and welcome to our girls on this virtual platform. On behalf of the management, staff and students of our Girls Degree College, I extend a warm welcome to dear students and faculty members from various colleges and universities of the state who are here today. Today is the birth anniversary of T.S. Eliot, with whom the modernist literary movement began. On this special day, the college embarks on the ambitious program to strengthen the digital resources by starting online lecture series for the students. This program is specially designed for our UG and PG students of the state universities, and we will be dealing with the topics related to the common syllabus prescribed for it. In today's lecture, we will take up 19th century England, a historical perspective. It is my proud privilege and honor to welcome today's speaker, Dr. Sanober Haider. It is with a lot of pride that I take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Haider, who is in no way new to our college. In the last 60 years of the history of the college, we have had good fortune to nurture some of the great minds, and Dr. Haider is one of them. With English, economics, and history as her subjects, Dr. Haider graduated from our college in the year 2000. Dr. Haider is the topper of UPPSC exams for history lecturer. Recently, she won a gold medal in LLB in 2019. She has added many feathers to our cap. Our hearts swell with pride to claim her as our very own. Now, I would like to invite Amna Khan to give the formal welcome address and introduce the speaker to the audience. Amna.
Good afternoon, Honorable Guest Speaker, Dr. Haider, respected Principal Ma'am, Dr. U. Chaturvedi, faculty members of the various colleges, and dear students who have joined us today from the various parts of the city. Literature speaks the language of imagination, and the study of literature is supposed to train and improve imagination. With these great thoughts, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Sanober Haider, who is a PhD and NET in history. She is posted at Maharaja Bijli Fasi Government PG College, Lucknow, and is heading the Department of History. She has been contributing in the field of academics for 15 years. She has published more than 20 research papers in national and international journals and edited books. She has published 2 books, Law and Justice in United Province and Sibtainabad Through the Lens of Time. She has won the award for spreading awareness against the misconception through writing and research by the North Indian Journalist Welfare Association in 2016 and Youth Hostel Gaurav Samman for Best Anchoring in 2016. She was awarded the Women of Excellence Award on Women's Day 2019 by Awadhnama. Ma'am has organized several national and international webinars on relevant topics under the patronage of the Department of Higher Education. She has been appointed the member of National Archives Grant Committee by the Ministry of Culture, Government of India. Today, she will deliver a talk on the topic 19th Century England, a Historical Perspective. The 19th century culture began to pursue the scientific quest and regain confidence in spiritual truth, which was the work of the German idealist philosopher Immanuel Kant. Victorian age is a term used to designate broadly the literature written during the reign of Queen Victoria, 1837 to 1901. According to Dickens, it was the age of material prosperity, political awakening, democratic and social reforms, educational progress, industrial and mechanical progress, and scientific advancement and social unrest. Thank you. It is a kind notice to the audience that you will be allowed to ask questions regarding the webinar after the lecture. You will kindly raise your hand and drop your question in the chat box. The host will unmute you to ask the questions. Now, I would like to hand over the reins of the webinar to Ma'am Haider. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before I begin my presentation, I would like to thank the management of our Girls Degree College, the principal, Dr. Upma Chaturvedi, and most of all, Dr. Krishna, for giving me this opportunity and inviting me to express my views on this important topic of history and English literature, 19th century England. And I will be dealing with this topic in a historical perspective through a PowerPoint presentation. So just give me a moment to share the screen, please. Can you hear me now? All right, as has already been described in detail and also told that we are going to talk about 19th century England, a historical perspective. 19th century England is more popularly referred to as the Victorian era. And this was a period which was identified by great economic growth, prosperity, and development in England. There were some distinct social values, and there were some distinct economic developments and the unprecedented growth of the British Empire that happened and makes the Victorian era a very important and a very dominating period of the study in history as well as in English literature. And before this, we must understand why this period, 19th century, is referred to as a Victorian age. So this is a picture of Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria was, you know, she became the monarch of England at the very young age of 18. Her name was Alexandria Victoria, and she ascended the throne at a very young age. And she was a woman of a very short height, 4 feet and 11 inches tall, and came to the throne after the death of her uncle William IV. And she was one of the last monarchs of the House of Hanover who ruled England. So her reign lasted from 20th June 1837, ending on 22nd of January 1901. Queen Victoria, from a very young age, had realized that she is soon going to be the monarch of the great country of England. Now, this is a picture in which we can see the Queen as a young lady during her coronation, and the second picture is that of Queen Victoria along with her husband, Prince Albert. Now, Prince Albert also happened to be the cousin of Queen Victoria and exercised a lot of influence over her day-to-day life, her political ideology, and even the administrative activities of the Queen. Unfortunately, however, Prince Albert died at a young age of 42, which gave a great setback to the Queen, and she almost, retired from political life actively, but later on she did recover and continued to give leadership to England for a very long period of time. As I've already written, she ruled for 63 years over Great Britain, the empire, and this in turn proved to be a great positive point in this period, because when you have a single ruler ruling the country with a lot of continuity, stability, and peace and orderliness, then obviously the country, the empire is going to prosper and do well in every way that is possible. At the same time, if we compare the other countries of the world, we find that in Germany during this period, there were as many as 7 rulers who changed the throne. So you can imagine how much of an upheaval and instability existed in other countries of the world, while England prospered due to the stability and single rule provided under the reign of Queen Victoria. Now, before we proceed further, we must understand the 3 different names which we often use synonymously, that is England, Great Britain, and the United Kingdom. Now, see, Great Britain is the empire. It is officially called the Great Britain, which was a sovereign state in Western Europe and existed till the year 1801. In January 1801, the act known as the Acts of Union came into effect. It was passed and enacted by the British Parliament, and it provided for the creation of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. And it consisted, this United Kingdom consisted of London, Scotland, Wales, and the other country is Northern Ireland. So this is what United Kingdom consists of, and England is a country belonging to the United Kingdom. It is supposed to be the largest and a very highly populated country of England. So these terms are separate from each other. We cannot use it synonymously. That's Great British Empire, the United Kingdom, and England. Now, why again I will emphasize the Victorian era is a very important era in the history of the study of world history, because it was an age of change. It was an age when England transformed from an agricultural and rural and handicrafts economy being dominated primarily by industries and machine manufacturing. There was the Industrial Revolution that we have heard about and we have read about in history. And so from this point of view, the Victorian era, you can say, transformed a rural based economy into more of an industrialized economy. Moving further, we understand that this period witnessed the coming in of Charles Darwin, the contributions of Charles Dickens, the coming in of the first railway, the telephone, telegraph, and various other developments through the Industrial Revolution, which otherwise had not been witnessed during any period of history. Now, talking about Charles Darwin, Charles Darwin has a big contribution that he has made towards science and towards human history through his ideology and principle of the origin of the species. Now, this is a very bold doctrine that Charles Darwin had enunciated at that period of time, because he claimed, he had been on a long voyage of 5 years, and he had also gone into the jungles, and he has written a lot of work which he officially published later on under the name of the Origin of Species. Somewhere in the year 1859, he published this work, and it was regarded as one of the most controversial works related to science and human existence at that time. he claims that all the species, whether it is animals or humans, can claim descent from a common ancestor. Obviously, this in an age of religion, in an age where religion was quite a dominating force in the society, this kind of a theory was going to attract a lot of opposition, and that is why it is said to be a controversial doctrine of origin of species. Now, since we are having a special series in English literature, we have to refer to the kind of literary compositions that were made during this period. And we discover that prose and poetry underwent a great change at this time. There was a shift from the age of reason and rationality to that of romanticism and mysticism. The poets and the writers, you can say, in a way, they revolted against the traditional form of writing. They believed in expression of a lot of emotion and connectivity with nature. So the kind of prose, poetry, and the other literature that was written during this period was away from what was already being composed in the earlier ages. Lyrical ballets also became a very important kind of compositions of the Victorian era. Now, when we talk about romanticism, this is a kind of art that was produced during this period, close to nature and different from something that is more rational and more serious, of the more serious order. Now, literature and in the Victorian age cannot be complete without referring to Charles Dickens. Now, Charles Dickens is known as the king of Victorian literature for the kind of work that he produced. He was the most popular writer of this period, and the authors and the poets of this period have primarily referred to the social structure and personal experiences that existed at that time. So when we talk about Dickens, while he was very young, his father had to go to prison. He was imprisoned for the kind of debts that he took from the people. And so at a very young age, Charles Dickens was unfortunately put in a difficult circumstance, and he had to go and work in a boot factory so that he could provide the basics for his family in whatever manner it was possible. So, he had a sense of betrayal. He felt that the seniors and the adults in the life who are supposed to take care of him as a young child have betrayed him, and so his personal experiences as a child have been reflected in his works. And if we talk about Oliver Twist, that was written by him, it is a story of an orphan boy who is able to get through truth by the use of his power of wit. Then we have got The Great Expectations. We have got A Christmas Carol. Christmas Carol is one of the most popular works of Charles Dickens, in which he has described the plight of the poor workers, the lower class workers who are subjected to a lot of hardships in life. And through his imagery, through his way of writing, he has tried to bring out the life and the conditions of the poor workers. And it is also recorded somewhere that after reading this novel, many of the employers were so sensitized and they were so deeply affected that they even gave an extra holiday, days holiday, to the employees, empathizing with the condition of the lower class workers. Then there is also The Tale of Two Cities, which is a kind of historical novel because he has written about the French Revolution that happened in the year 1789, propounding the ideals of equality, liberty, and fraternity. So Charles Dickens, dominates a major portion in the literary composition of the Victorian era. Besides that, we have other writers like W.M. Thackeray, who wrote The Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair is almost a hero-less composition, which is a reflection of human emotions. It is also a panoramic portrait of what was happening in the society at that time. And one thing noteworthy here is Thackeray was born in India. He was an Indian-born English author. Then we have got Middlemarch, written by George Eliot. It is also a reflection of the society. Then there were the Bronte sisters. Then there were poets like Tennyson, and there was Thomas Hardy, and many other writers and poets who composed their works which were primarily reflecting the conditions of the society in the Victorian era. Now, moving on for literature, we go towards a kind of social and economic structure that prevailed in the Victorian society. See, this slide will give you how the gender roles were defined in a Victorian society. See, in the 19th century, the Victorian society talked about the doctrine of separate spheres. It means and it emphasizes on the fact that man and woman are carved out for different roles in life. While a man is the tougher and the meaner of the two sexes, a woman is the calmer and the softer and the gentler of the two genders. So a man has to do the work outside the house, he has to manage the world, while a woman is supposed to take care of the family, she is supposed to take care of the children, she is supposed to dress up, she is supposed to attend parties, organize parties, and do everything that a woman is supposed to do, cooking, weaving, everything. They were trained like that. But with the passage of time, due to the requirement of better incomes in the family, a single income for a very long time was not entertained, and position changed in the 19th century itself. And even women went out to work, because single wages today are not supporting families, and at that time you can imagine it would have been difficult. So even women from certain households, especially the middle class women and the lower class women, did go out to work. And I'm talking about a doctrine of separate spheres at a time when Queen Victoria, a woman matriarch, was dominating one of the biggest empires known to the world. So there is it is quite paradoxical, and this is a point to wonder where that the society is defining gender roles when a woman is ruling the country for 63 long years, providing stability, growth, and resplendence to the society. Then we talk about the family. The family happened to be a dominant feature in all the sections of the society. The families were large. The people, supported big families. There were parents, grandparents, and even 4 to 5 children that they were maintaining. And the Victorian family believed in that proverb of spare the rod and spoil the child. That means they believed in a strict upbringing of the children. Etiquettes and and presentations were really stressed upon. The children knew what their place was and how they were supposed to behave and how they were supposed to conduct themselves. So family definitely happened to be a very important feature of the Victorian society. Then we come to the social classes and the economic structure of the Victorian society. See, the society was divided, I have already told you, into genders, then there were races, and then there were classes. So basically a Victorian society was based on race, gender, and class. Here we are going to talk about social classes, which were also based on the economic conditions. They were widely divided, and there were the upper classes, there were the middle classes, and there was a lower working classes. This slide basically deals with the middle class, because Victorian era is referred to as a golden period for the middle classes. Why? Because of the Industrial Revolution and because of the economic boom that was happening in England, the condition and the economic status of the middle classes improved manifold. The job opportunities increased, and so the income increased, and so the middle classes happened to be in the best situation in this period. So by 1850, majority of the population had moved into this section of the society, and they did acquire a lot of political holding as well in the society. Now I will be talking about the lower classes and the upper classes as well. The upper class of the society basically consisted of the royalty and the aristocracy. These people were landowners, they were rich people, they owned a lot of wealth, they earned a lot of rental, and so in a way they were able to dominate most of the land and the wealth of the Victorian England. Middle classes, they acquired their salary through they acquired salaries. That was a source of income. They belonged to the basically consisted of bankers, engineers, teachers, and doctors. These were the kind of people who compose the middle classes. They went to the office. And then we also have the lower classes. The lower class consisted of the workers, both skilled and unskilled. The working classes, if they were skilled, they were able to get good jobs for themselves. They were able to, because there was a lot of mechanization and there was a lot of industrialization. So the job opportunities now shifted from the rural section to the urban areas. There was a lot of urbanization when the industries were set up, and when the factories came into being, the people migrated from the countryside and they came to settle in the city areas, the urban areas, in search of jobs. And here the situation and the condition was welcoming only for the skilled laborers. those people who were unskilled, the laborers, they were in a pathetic condition because they were not able to get the kind of job that they came to look for because they did not have any acquired skills. So the wages were very poor. They were even forced to live on the streets. They lived in unhygienic conditions, and there were a lot of children's deaths reported because even children were forced to work in the factories at that time, which was not in favor of their health. So this is what I told you about when I was talking about Charles Dickens, that he worked in a boot factory as a child. So the condition of the laborers who were unskilled was quite pitiable. Then at this time, certain factory acts were also passed: the 1833 Factory Act, 1842, and the 1844 Factory Act. These factory acts have also influenced and have been inspirational in formation of the Factories Act that came into existence in India at that time when we were a colony of the British Empire. And the Factories Act banned children from working in the textile industries. 9 to 13-year-old limited to 9 hours of work a day. 13 to 18 years old were limited to 12 hours a day. So you can imagine there was almost a whole day that the workers were engaged in labor in the industries and factories. The conditions were not good, unhygienic. Then there were the kind of breaks that they should get, the sanitation, ventilation, arrangement for light, all these things does not exist before the coming in of the Factories Act. So the Factories Act definitely worked for providing some kind of respite to these laborers who otherwise were in a pitiable condition. So talking about the classes again: upper class, middle class, and lower classes. Upper class, of course, the aristocrats and the privileged. Middle classes were in a very good condition, and the sufferers were primarily the working class and the poor in the society. So you can say the era, while talking about economic richness and resplendence on one side, is also talking about how the poor were suffering. There is a stark contrast in the kind of economic situation that was prevailing because of the coming of the Industrial Revolution. Now, we talk about the kind of education system that was prevalent. The Victorian period did give in a lot of encouragement to education. Primary education and free education was also provided for those parents and those families who were not in a position to be able to afford the education of the children. Were given respite in the form of minus or no fee that was to be paid by them. Then home education was also encouraged, especially amongst the aristocracy and the richer section of the society. There were home tutors available. Then there were caretakers available. There were other educational acts that were passed, that, like in the slide I have mentioned, William Forester's Elementary Education Act 1870 and the Fisher Education Act 1918, making secondary education compulsory. So the society at this time had realized the importance of education and how being literate and how being educated is going to take us forward, which was imperative for the development of any country at any point of time. See again the slides here, I'm just trying to show how the classrooms are being conducted, and even girls' education has been emphasized upon in the Victorian era, which is quite quite good to see. Then we have got entertainment. See, the English society was indulging a great deal into entertainment. Why? How? Because while they were having better incomes, they also therefore were having better means of indulging into leisurely activities and entertainment. See, here this is some these are some outside sports that they used to indulge in. Besides this, there was a lot of theater and drama happening. You know, the melodrama happened a lot in Victorian period. There were the virtuous heroines and there were the evil villains, and there was a lot of emotion, and all the filmy style that we can imagine of at the moment was incorporated into the theater of the Victorian period. Then encouragement was given to music, singing, play, and all the kinds of source of entertainment that were possible. Music halls were built and operas were there. So entertainment became a part of the daily life of the Victorians. And another thing that I would like to mention here is that the concept of weekend that we talk about developed during the Victorian period. Saturday afternoon to Sunday evening was an affordable weekend for the society in British England during the 19th century, because they were in that economic condition where they could manage to have a weekend. So when we talk about Thank God it's Friday. It actually was supposed to be, thank God it's Saturday afternoon till Sunday evening at that point of time. Now we have an extended weekend beginning from Friday night in today's culture. So moving ahead, again some pictures of industrialization. Textile industry happened a lot, and at this time, as we know that India was also a British colony, so whatever was happening in English did exercise a lot of influence in the colonies of the British Empire. Now, one thing before I proceed further, I must mention here that the kind of politics that was happening in England was a constitutional monarchy. The Queen was the head of the country, or the King, as provided by the Constitution of Great Britain. Great Britain has an unwritten constitution, primarily unwritten. It is partially written, partially unwritten. It is one of the largest and the longest constitutions that the world has, inspiring the Constitution of India as well. They have a parliament, a bicameral legislature, having the House of Commons and the House of the Lords, and the Queen is the head. So this is very important. It continues to exist till this date. See, and then there were the steam engines. The coming in of the steam engine is a very important development that happened during the Victorian period, and therefore it is also referred to as the age of steam. Victorian engineers developed a lot of powerful machines that could run the factories through steam. This led to massive increase in number of factories, and by 1870, around 1 lakh steam engines were at work throughout Great Britain. The industry depended on steam and steam depended on coal. That means coal fields also doubled between 1851 to 1881. So obviously there was a lot of development happening. See, these are the looms, and these are the various slides I have tried to show and help your sense of imagination, so that you can imagine how the industrial revolution was happening and what kind of work was being done in England. See, the steam engine that I was talking to you about, and then there was also the diesel engine that was developed during this period. But when we talk about steam and a lot of steam, and we talk about 1 lakh steam engines working, then obviously what is going to happen? A lot of pollution also happened in this period. And that's quite natural, because the pollution happened, diseases happened, and then there was cholera, and there was smallpox, and there was some epidemic, not a pandemic, there was an epidemic that struck England during this period. And then moving further, we have got photography. This also developed during the Victorian period. We have got the Eastman. You must have heard of Eastman, you must have heard of Kodak. The camera reels were developed during this period, and motion pictures also happened after some time. And when I talk about motion pictures, there is again another point worth mentioning here, that many of Charles Dickens' works and even the Vanity Fair has been adopted by various filmmakers over a passage of time, converted into films. And I have read it somewhere that the Vanity Fair was also adopted into a Hindi movie, Behrupiya Bazaar, somewhere around in 1932. So you can search about that. 1884 film roll was invented, and George Eastman laid the foundation of his great photographic industry at New York. 1887, the Eastman Company had come into being. So see, this is the kind of camera that was used, and now we are using camera just through a small hole in this laptop or the phone that we are using. Yes, another very important point is the development of medicine. Progress was made in the field of health also. Two very important things that happened was development in the field of anesthesia and the coming into use of chloroform. See, this is a picture of a dentist who is treating the teeth of this patient, and he is using chloroform here. And Queen Victoria is also reported to have used chloroform during her 8th confinement. That means during the birth of her 8th child, Queen Victoria did make use of chloroform. And yes, again, I would like to mention, Queen Victoria did have a brood of 9 children at that time. So family again was a center for both the men and the women, and they indulged in having and supporting large families with lots of children around. So medicines at this time were progressive, and methodology, a new methodology and a lot of innovations were used. X-ray also came into being, but at the end of it, the English people believed in the power of prayer. Then culture. I have told you about culture already. what was happening, a lot of emphasis was laid upon the kind of way in which the children were to be brought up. Then there was a lot of entertainment, theater, art, painting, music, literature, everything developed a great deal during this period. And this period is identified as being a very special one in history and literature of the world. Then we come further and we talk about fashion. Since we are very much into fashion all the time, so why not refer to Victorian fashion? See the kind of gown that I have used in this slide. See the kind of ladies and their dress up. So hats and caps were a part of their dressing up. This is the gown. They used a lot of figure revealing outfits. Figure revealing not in the sense of figure exposure outfits. It was figure revealing. Having a very thin waistline was encouraged. They used to wear silhouettes, and they used to wear corsets, and they used to wear bonnets. See, corsets were worn inside the gown so that the figure of the girl or the lady wearing it could be highlighted. There was a lot of layering done in the gown to give this kind of a look to it. Then detailing of dress was done a lot, and it did give the impression that you are supposed to dress up in the elitist manner possible. The women were supposed to dress up like this, and so were the men. Men were supposed to wear trousers and hats. I've not included any pictures of men's fashion, because we'll be interested in women's fashion more than that. See, now this is a very colorful and interesting picture which will help you identify with the kind of dressing up, the jewelry. Hats were mandatory in a way, and if you have seen any kind of documentaries related to the Victorian era, you will see women dressed up exactly in a similar manner. And the works, and there are some movies have been also made, like Pride and Prejudice. If you see, or if you have read, your imagination lights up when you read the Pride and Prejudice regarding the women, the kind of mannerisms, the men and their etiquettes, the kind of dressing up that they indulged in. So Victorian era is a very colorful period. And then again, there were women of pleasure who were not looked upon with great respect. They were supposed to be living outside the peripheries of the city. And 20th century and the 19th century, which we are talking about, definitely contributed a great deal towards the development of fashion, both for men and women. Now, again, I have used, this is my last slide in all probabilities, and I have used a picture of Queen Victoria's coronation here, where she is seen being coronated as a young girl. And hence, while coming to the end of this lecture, I would say that the Victorian age is a case study of stark contrasts. Beauty and richness of aristocracy versus the poverty and depression of the poor working class. Due to the Industrial Revolution, definitely the balance of power shifted from the aristocrats and the royalty, who were the owners of land and wealth, to those businessmen who were now going to sponsor and hold charge of these industries and factories. An explosion of the Industrial Revolution, which can also be called the Industrial Evolution, accelerated migration of the population from the rural side and the countryside to the cities, leading to the overcrowded cities, and even in some cases it has been said slum areas were created because there was too much of population which had shifted from the countryside to the cities, and there was no provision for them in terms of jobs and household facilities. Working class conditions improved with the coming in of the Factories Act, and like I mentioned to you, there did happen an epidemic in the 1831, that was before the coming in of Queen Victoria, because of the spread of cholera. So Victorian era ends with that last slide of mine, and over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much. That's all that I have to say at the moment.
Could you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay, I was
done.
Yes. Okay, so we have some questions. Nikita, can you go first? Nikita, you had a question, or should I relay the question to ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, my name is Nikita Singh from BA third year. Ma'am, my question is, what is meant by constitutional monarchy?
Okay. I have already mentioned here, constitutional monarchy is there exists a monarch who is the head of the state, and he is provided or she is provided for by the constitution of that land, and constitution is the supreme law of the land. No law functions beyond the constitution of a country. So in England, there happened a constitutional monarchy. There is a provision that the king or the monarch shall be the head of the state, or the queen or the monarch will be the head of the state, and through a constitutionally organized government, right? So the powers are vested in the queen or the king as the head of the state, but he is assisted in the exercise, or she is assisted in the exercise of his functions through the elected parliament. The parliament actually legislates and makes the laws, and the queen or the king working as the head of the state is supposed to be assisted by these houses of the legislature.
Okay, next
Right?
we have Ritesh. Please unmute yourself and pose your question to ma'am.
Ritesh,
Yes, ma'am, Ritesh.
what is your question?
Ritesh, go ahead. Okay, maybe he's some problem with the network. He asked your opinion on feminism in this
My
time. Yes.
In what sense you want me to ask opinion on feminism?
How was feminism developing during this time?
In this period of time, yes, very important question. See, the first point that I would like to start my answer with is that we had a matriarch as a monarch of England. England, or the Great British Empire, I must say, was one of the largest empires known to the world, and it was ever expanding. And when Queen Victoria died in 1901, and at the time when she had ascended in 1837, the size of the British Empire had swelled, and by 1801 they had colonies in almost all continents of the world. It was North America, South America, Asia, Africa, and of course New Zealand also became a colony of Great Britain. So feminism was going strong. Gender roles, as I have already defined, were being redefined. The doctrine of separate spheres was not having a great strength towards the end of the 19th century, because of the requirement of better incomes and better standards of living in a British family, in a Victorian family. Even women were venturing out and finding suitable jobs for themselves, besides only playing the role of a housekeeper and a house manager. So feminism did acquire better status, and it developed, and it continues to develop at this point of time.
The next we have a question from Tanya.
Yes, Tanya.
Tanya, go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My question is, ma'am, was there any downfall of the Victorian era?
Was there any
Downfall.
We
Yeah,
cannot
yeah.
say there was any downfall. Victorian era means the era of Queen Victoria, 1837 to 1901. It ended with her death. There was no downfall, but there was definitely not all good. There was a lot of good happening on as far as industrial revolution was concerned, as far as the growth of the middle class was concerned. But there were certain points that I have mentioned here that also contributed to this Victorian period being a contrast in many ways. The labor class and the poor class were not having a very good time, because most of them were unskilled and unfit for employment in industries and factories. And the condition of the factories, as discussed, was not really great, was not worker friendly until the passing of the Factories Act. The working hours were pretty long, and like 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the evening, without any kind of suitable breaks in between. Conditions of sanitation, health, hygiene, education, compensation, and other facilities were not provided for till the coming in of the Factories Act, which was later also improvised with the passage of time. So there was no downfall, but then definitely there were contrasts. Aristocrats and middle class on one side, if you put them, and the labor class on the other side, contributing to poverty and the poor section in the society. Then men's role I had discussed. Men were regarded to be superior, tougher, meaner, and kind of people supporting the family, and the woman was supposed to be dependent on the man, which changed with the passage of time. So all in all, there was no downfall, but there was the end of the Victorian era, right?
Next, we have a question by Insha Hussain. Insha,
Yes.
please ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good
My
afternoon.
name is Insha Sen from BA third year. My question is, what led to growth in urban culture during the Victorian era?
Okay, yes. What led to the growth of urban culture? Yes. See, when this industrial revolution happened, there was a migration of people from the countryside to the cities because machines had been brought up, factories had been set up, and a lot of mechanization was happening. So the people in the villages and the countryside did not have much to do at home. Hence, they migrated to the cities in search of better jobs opportunities so that they could command a better income and improve their standards of living. So the shifting of the rural population to the urban centers, city centers, led to the urbanization during the Victorian period. Basically, agrarian economy being transformed into an industrial and mechanized economy, right?
Next, we have Sayyeda. Please go ahead, ask your question, Sayyeda.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, my question is that during the Victorian era, improvement in technology increased rapidly.
Huh.
In what way the British society altered as a result of these changes?
In what ways the British society altered?
Yes, ma'am, altered as a result of these changes.
Okay, so the technological advances happened, yes. The introduction of the steam engine, the introduction of machines, the introduction of various other technological gadgets like the camera, the railways, the telegraph, and telephone, all this happened, and it did contribute towards the betterment of the English society. There was a lot of movement. Somewhere I read there was, with the help of the railways that was introduced, lakhs of people moved from one place to another, and they migrated from the countryside to the urban city centers. They adopted to technology. Technology obviously always takes you forward, but there are always the pros and cons of anything new that is introduced. Like I mentioned, they adopted and they benefited from technology, but then there was a lot of pollution, there were health issues, then there were children who were affected due to working in the factories because they were too young, or even their parents were working from 6 to 9, so that they were neglected. Even neglect has been cited as a cause of children's death in large numbers during this period. There were illnesses and there were sicknesses because of extreme pollution which happened through the steam and other waste products going into the environment, right? They did adapt, of course.
Then we have Khushbu. Go ahead, ask your question, Khushbu.
Hi, good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Kushbu, and I'm pursuing a master's in English. Ma'am, we've always read that the Victorian period is called the age of doubt and the age of uncertainty. So, could you please comment on that?
Okay, see, Victorian age is called the age of doubt, and in a way, a lot has been said and written about this kind of a question that you are asking. See, the Victorian period marks a change. First point is that it marks a change from being a rural economy. Suddenly, we get transformed to a modern industrialized economy. Then, when we talk about religion, we have been through an age of reason. We have been through an age of rationalism, and again, we are going back to expression of emotion. We are going back to a period of romanticism and mysticism, and then religion also. Catholicism was practiced at that time, and Protestantism also existed. So the people, though moving in a direction of development, were not very sure about what is going to happen towards the end of it. We are having a stable government because the Queen survives all these 63 years. We are having order and orderliness in the Kingdom of Great Britain because of the long period through which the Queen rules, which was not happening in other parts of the world. So there is there is doubt amongst the people about what is going to happen after that, how the political scenario and the balance of power is going to take a turn in future. So these are the critical analysis that have been done about being the age of doubt, because while on one hand the people are flourishing and earning wealth, on the other hand there is a section of society which is suffering. And while industrial revolution we are talking again and again, there is economic boom, but then still there is a section of society which is not doing very well. So there is a doubt, there was a doubt amongst the people regarding this, because of being inseparable from belief, and there was a lot of thought and a lot of debating that has been done on this topic. So this is my take on being the age of doubt.
So this one's the last question now, by Tejasvi. Go ahead, ask your question, Tejasvi.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Tejasvi Shukla from BA third year. My question is, what kind of foreign relations did Victorian England had with the other countries?
Okay. Victorian England at this period of time under Queen Victoria followed a policy of splendid isolation. See, splendid is their own word, because the British had a sense of whole soul superiority. So they coined the word as splendid. Isolation, we understand what is the meaning, that we are isolating ourselves from the rest of the world. That means it does not mean that England was not interacting or not having any relations with the rest of the world. It simply means that England did not enter into any kind of permanent alliances with any countries of Europe and the world at that time. They were happy being stable in splendid isolation. So most of the time it was peace under Queen Victoria, except the Crimean War that was fought in 1854-56, where there was some participation of Great Britain also. So it was basically splendid isolation, right?
Now, thank you, ma'am. That was very insightful and comprehensive for all of us. Now I hand over the reins of the program to Rupal.
Thank you, ma'am. As we have come to the end of the event, it's my privilege to propose a formal vote of thanks. Ma'am, it was such a treat to listen to you, would be an understatement. You have summed up all the minute details of the era so beautifully that I'm sure none of us would ever forget that. And we would love to have you in our college once the college reopens for another informative session. We are grateful to Ms. Vikaji, President, Managing Committee, for making it possible for us to conduct the event. I would like to thank Professor Pandey, Manager Secretary, Managing Committee, for her constant support in making the event possible. We are indebted to Dr. Chaturvedi, Principal, Awadh Girls Degree College, for her help and guidance in all our events. This webinar would not have been possible without the technical assistance of Ma'am Sharma. Ma'am, it was an absolute honor for us to have you as the host of the event. I would like to thank all the faculty members from our college and also from other colleges for taking out time and staying with us throughout the session. I'm thankful to the students from other various colleges for making the event a huge success. My heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Krishna. Ma'am, you have steered us in the right direction with your valuable insights and for organizing the event. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.